And even though that was the solo, we actually have more soloing going on in the final verse. So let's go ahead and take a look at that now. So in the first part of the verse that basically revolves around D minor / D diminished, we slide out of the solo prior on chord tones of D. During the palm muted part with D, we ascend upwards and hit this B natural here chromatically for a little bit of extra tension when we return to D minor in the rhythm before going to that G sharp again, which once again can function as the flat 5 of D, making D diminished seem like a reasonable interpretation for this area here. We then have this passage that's definitely based around D minor, but utilizes that G sharp again to give it that diminished sound, and once again takes advantage of a natural flat, probably to once again increase the tension, before finally sharping the C, which is indicative of D harmonic minor. Then we have this part, which to me is essentially once again outlining a D, except using bends to get there from starting points of accidentals, with something similar happening here, and then using what I would probably consider passing tones to get back to one more harmonized bend that outlines the 3rd and 5th of D minor respectively, before one final part that plays a D in the lead along with the D in the rhythm, and an A flat in the lead along with an A flat in the rhythm. And once again, this A flat is the inharmonic of the G sharp that we've been seeing so much. And in the final measure of the last verse, we have this transition to what I have called the interlude here, where the line, "I'll make a beast out of myself," is repeated with other things. And in the lead, they're keeping the tension somewhat controlled by staying on the Ds, but increasing it by an octave with the duration of half notes. For the rhythmic part here, and while this can definitely be a confusing way to notate it, this is essentially 16th note triplets. So once again, they're utilizing tuplets to give some real speed to the song. And with that, we have completed all the lead guitar parts of the song. And now we're finally going to get into the interlude, which is essentially a completely separate kind of feel. So until the second part of this interlude, I'm probably not going to talk about the melodic elements of what's going on here too much. Instead, I want to focus on the rhythm. Whatever version of rhythm you want to use, either the version that I've put down here or the one that follows the ref's kick drum, the rhythm is done in such a way that even though the guitar part itself is very clearly sitting behind Shadows' voice, there's enough going on back there for your ear to be intrigued and to maintain interest, even though they could have probably just as easily played whole notes for most of these chords. They didn't. They went that extra step to put a rhythm to it, and that was really cool. As we saw before, we observed some chord changes on the offbeat of 4 at the end of some measures, again keeping that intrigue up, before having a nice pause before going into the second part of the interlude. Melodically speaking, we're also observing a natural B instead of a flat B, therefore making what was formerly an E diminished chord an E minor chord, though we're at least assuming it would be given the fact that we don't have a third to make a judgment on. Now, even though we just had an E minor right here, we actually go back to an F and later have a B flat major, which to me implies that even though we just had an E minor, we are now back in the key of F major / D minor. We move to the C, which is the flat 7, to the B flat, which is the flat 6, and we actually hang out on the B flat for a bit, which is kind of interesting because due to that extra measure hanging out on the B flat as well as the final measure, this part of the interlude is actually a total of 6 measures, opposed to the only 4 measures that we observed before in the first part of the interlude. And finally, in our last measure of this interlude, I've denoted as an A major in first inversion, which is what this /C sharp means right here. I say this because these are the 3 notes from A major, except C sharp, from what I can tell best to my ears, is being played on the bottom or in the root position if you would. So that would make this an A major in first inversion. And we have the last chorus, and before I play it, I'll note that I actually didn't notate the final clean part of the song. I felt that all the meat of the song was concentrated well enough in the parts of the song that are in the music video, which the final clean outro is not in the music video, so I just decided to cover that. But we're not done yet, because there's one last thing I wanted to talk about in this chorus, and that is the simple fact that the bass here is ever so slightly different, to me anyways, than it was in the other choruses. Just another cool example of how adding variation, even where you least expect it, can add a nice element to a song. And then we have the two measures of the outro. Just D minor with some palm muted stuff right there. And that is my songwriting, sheet music analysis, music theory analysis, whatever you want to call it, for Backcountry by Avenged Sevenfold. I really hope you got a lot out of this and can use the techniques that we talked about in your own personal songwriting. Before looking at all of this, I actually consider this to be a more simple song when compared to some of Avenged Sevenfold's other stuff, but now I see that's just totally wrong. There's a ton of very subtle things happening to keep the listener engaged, even if what's happening to keep the engagement up isn't all totally in your face. If you got something out of this, I'd really appreciate you liking the video and subscribing, but most importantly, tell me what you thought of my analysis here, like what was wrong, what could have been improved. There were certainly some harmonies across all of the band members that I really wasn't sure what was correct on, so if you have any ideas as to better ways to classify those, that would be great for me to know. And if you have any songs you'd like me to cover, just let me know. I can't guarantee that I'd be able to cover any and all requests, but any songs similar to this of a rock or metal nature that have a very modern metal sound to it, I'd love to take a look at them. So let me know what you think, and until next time, I'll see you right here on Spike Signal. Thank you.